Alright, this is the first step in brewing. It's called the mash. And it's just a fancy word for soaking these grains in hot water. I've been heating this for, 10 minutes at least, and it's to about 160 degrees. That's just one of those weird numbers you'll have to remember, is that when you're mashing, when you're soaking the grains in hot water, it has to be around 155. Like, you have to keep it at sort of a steady temperature. At around 155, so I started at 160, throw the grains in there, and that usually drops the temperature a little bit, and then I just let it sit, and I just kind of keep an eye on the temperature. I'm going to mash this for an hour, so 60 minutes. Another thing I forgot to say, this paint strainer bag, it's a paint strainer bag, a 5-gallon one I got from Lowe's for a couple dollars. And that helps a lot, because then the grain doesn't have to go in the kettle and be all over in the bottom and shit. So when I'm done mashing, I can just take this bag out with all the grains in it. It's a really easy way to do it. So that's what that is. Oh yeah, how much water do you put in? That's another weird number you're gonna have to remember. You just have to kind of look it up. This is 3 gallons of water for about 9 pounds of grain. So there's like basically a proportion you have to follow. This is the most grain I've ever tried to mash. This is almost 9 pounds. I usually only do like 5 or 6 in here, so that's why there's tons of water in here. So now I'm going to cut the heat and start putting the grains in. 3 pounds of churro pale malt, and then this will be 5 pounds of regular churro, which is like basically like the foundation of most beers. Every beer almost has tons of this stuff in it. It's called churro. And this is the rest of the churro. American churro. Then you kind of want to mix it in there a little bit. And then there's one more. This is the 8 ounces of caramel crystal. This is like the special grain. Alright, that's it. Now you just stir it in here. Put the top on. I don't even know if you can see this, but I stirred it up in there. I put the top on because that keeps the temperature, and now it's just going to sit there at like 155. I'm going to start my stopwatch. It's going to go for 60 minutes. In about 15 to 20 minutes I'm going to check on the temperature to make sure it's still good. And I'm having a beer. Friday at about 2 o'clock. This is awesome. So that's it. That's the mash. That's all it is. Putting the grains in this thing. 155 degrees for an hour. This is basically to convert all the starches in the barley grains into sugars, which are going to be gobbled up by the yeast to make alcohol. So that's one reason to do this. Another reason is all those grains give the beer color and different flavors. So the caramel crystal give it like a sugary kind of flavor, which is what I'm tasting right now. And that's it. Alright, this is still part 3, I think. I'm still mashing. It's been 39 minutes or so. I've stirred it a few times. The temperature is pretty much kept nice and normal, around 155. I'm just gonna stir it again right now. Where the fuck do I put this? Alright, I'm gonna give it a stir, check the temperature. Also, I wanted to say that while I was doing this, about 10 minutes ago, I started heating up this water. This is like, I don't know, maybe 1.5 gallons or 2 gallons of water. I'm heating it up. I'm gonna sparge with it. That's what it's called. Again, you don't really have to do this, but it helps. That'll be the next step after this, sparging with this water. So while this is finishing up, I'm heating this sparge water up. Basically, I'm just going to pour this over the grains, and it rinses them off. Oh yeah, I forgot to stir this. And then I'm going to show you a couple of things I have in the basement. Basically, I have water in the basement, because when I'm all done with this, this is not going to total 5 gallons of beer at the end. So I'm going to have to basically add water to it. So I'm making like a diluted beer, and then I'm going to add water to it when I put it in the fermenting bucket. That's basically how partial mash works, the kind of method that I'm doing. An all grain mash would have this huge fucking kettle that's way too big for a kitchen. You have to do it outside, and it would have all the water and beer that you need. So when you're done doing an all grain batch, you'd have everything. You'd pour it in the fermenting bucket, cool it down, and then it'd be good to go. But anyway, let me stir this up. That just kind of agitates the grains to make sure the conversion happens. Let me take the temp real quick. Basically like 165 is okay. I guess the different temperatures, they convert the sugars differently. I don't know much about it, but in the high end, I think you get more alcohol from it, and in the low end, like 140, you get more like body or something. It doesn't really matter. You just have to keep it around 155. And then this sparge water, I think, has to be to 170 degrees. It can't be too hot because you don't want to scald the grains when you're pouring it over them. But I guess it can't be too cold either, so I don't know. Alright. So we're still at 150. That's pretty good. Every time I open the lid, I just kind of put the burners on just a little bit to keep the temperature up. Alright, let's put the top on it. This has got about 15-20 minutes left only. I'll cut the heat off and I'll go show you what's in the basement, because I basically have to have extra water ready for the end. Like I said, at the end I'm going to be dumping this water, it's just filtered water, into the fermenting bucket with the beer that I boil. It's going to make it, it's going to top it off to 5 gallons total. You need extra water on hand. You can buy it from Meyer or whatever. You can also just use tap water, but I wanted to show that. Alright, I'll turn it back on when I'm finishing the mash and starting to sparge it and rinse the grains. Alright, it's been an hour, so the mash is done. It's done soaking. This, in the meantime, got up to temperature. This is at 170 degrees about. And so what I'm going to do is take the top off of this. There it is. Looks pretty much the same as it did in the beginning. And now, I don't know how I'm going to do this. I'm going to take this bag off, this thing off, and I'm going to put it on a strainer and let it soak, let it drain back into the pot. See if I can set this up. Here's the strainer that was being sanitized. Oh. This comes off pretty easily. And getting hot. Alright. So I'm going to let this rinse. And I'm actually going to turn the heat on because it's got to heat up to a boil in a little bit anyway. So I use both burners because the pot's big enough. Because when your kettle's this big, it takes forever to get it up to a boil, so I have to use both burners. So here's my 9 pounds of grain, and this is called rinsing, I think, and sparging. So when this rinses out real good, it's basically still full of sugars are kind of trapped in there, so you have to rinse it with this hot water, and see how there's little holes on this? I'm going to use that as like a kind of tea kettle that's going to sprinkle hot water through all of this grain and get all the sugars out of there, and the sugars will go into the beer down there. The name of this liquid is called wort, W-O-R-T, wort. It's unfermented beer at this point. So in a minute, I'm going to wait about, 4 or 5 minutes for this to drain, and then I'll start sparging. It's pretty much, if I don't get a video of it, it's pretty much me just grabbing both sides and tipping it over onto this and letting it just keep basically peeing all over it so it'll drain tons of sugars out. And this, I'll throw the grains like outside. Katie wants some of them because she makes bread out of them. And I'll keep the bag because I want to reuse that because you can reuse it. Alright. Wow, fuck, it's hot. Tired of a bitch. So sparging is this, pretty much this is it. Oh shit.